Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DH Effect. My name is Sonja, and this is my co-host, Hilary. We are continuing to talk about what it means to truly see with a decided heart. Our guest today, Betsy Lydle Smith, has been seeing people at a heart level and teaching others to truly see one another for over 30 years as a master facilitator for the Virtues Project. Welcome, Betsy.
Oh, hi, Sonja and Hilary. It's great to see you both.
So we have to just take a minute because if anybody has heard the story of really how I came to my origin story, I call it, of how I came to do what I do now, you'll have heard Betsy's name before. And about 17 years ago, I can't believe it's been 17 years already, I was coming off one of the most difficult times of my entire life. And episode 27 of our show, you can go back and listen to the whole thing. For the sake of time, we want to hear Betsy, not me. But basically, there was a time where we thought that I was going to not make it, that I was going to pass, that my son, who was born early, his life was in jeopardy. And then our oldest son was burned severely, and huge trauma in the family for that, and ended up in ICU for a long period of time. And coming out of that, I lost all track of who I was because I had labeled myself as mom and I had failed as mom. And throughout my life, I think a lot of us are taught to label ourselves as these titles, and we don't look in and really know who we are. And I ended up taking this course offered by Terry Ron and Valerie Hess in Wisconsin Rapids. And I walked in and Betsy was in there, and it was this Virtues Project thing. And within an hour, Betsy had created this safe space where people were acknowledging one another for what they saw in one another. And the people around me who didn't know me were acknowledging me for the love that they saw that I brought to the room, and the trust and the caring. And the tears just came, Betsy. They just came. And something in my heart just broke wide open in the best way possible, because I realized that I was being seen. And no matter what happened in life, if I could know who I was at a heart level, that was never going to change. That was going to be my anchor. And that started the work that I do today with Sonja, with so many others, with teens, thousands of people that I've spoken to, been a keynote to. It all started in that moment. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, I've had those same moments myself, Hilary. So, I think anyone who has been involved with the Virtues Project or recognizes who they are has those aha moments that are just so heartfelt and so moving and so transformational, really. The virtues are the essence of who we are. And when somebody really sees who we are without all the glitter or other things around us, it's so powerful for us to really claim that, to claim who we are. So I'm really honored to be a guest on your program and to talk about these virtues, because they're so important in my life and everyone I know, really.
And I would love to know what brought you to the Virtues Project. What was your story, and how did you find the Virtues Project?
Well, I was lucky enough to learn about it kind of at the inception, because I knew the founder, Linda Kavalin Popoff, and her husband, Dr. Dan Popoff. My husband and I had actually been at a marriage retreat in Northern California in the late 1980s, where they were the co-speakers for the weekend. And it really transformed our relationship. And at that time, they were talking about virtues, but the Virtues Project hadn't been started. And so I got on their mailing list. And when the Virtues Project started, Linda actually came to Seattle, where we lived, and did her first workshop in my husband's office building in the conference room. And it was for parents. It started out as a parenting program. And the Virtues Guide was the first book. It was in a loose leaf notebook at the time. And we came away from that weekend going, wow, this is really what we've been looking for, to be the best parents we could be. At the time, our children were already, I think, 10 and 14, 10 and 15, something like that. So I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I'd had that when they were babies, but I didn't. And the beautiful part is you can start wherever you are. And so over the years, it's been Well, it's just been such a journey. Right after that weekend, or soon after that weekend, Linda said to me, I think you should become a facilitator of this project. And I thought, well, what is that, And so I took the facilitator training, but I was focused on parenting. And at the time I was teaching junior high school. And I think, I think I was a pretty caring teacher, and I really liked loved my students, a lot of them. And a lot of them, of course, were challenging, but it was really fun and interesting and great work. But when I learned about the virtues, I started to see my students differently. And I think it was about halfway through the school year that I had this aha moment. Oh my gosh, I don't have to try to push these virtues into them. They already have them. It's my job to draw them out. And so it was a paradigm shift for me in starting to see kids differently and recognizing the beautiful spirits they had, and then teaching with that in mind. And it really changed everything for me. It changed them too. It changed these kids, or maybe it didn't really change them. It helped them develop who they really were. So, that was kind of my start. And from there, I've just done, well, I was running a nonprofit arts organization at the time also, after I did some teaching. And then I did an arts program for kids. And then I thought, it's time for me to go full time with virtues, because it was my passion and my love. And I just felt like the world needs it. So I became a full-time Virtues Project facilitator. How many years ago? I don't know, about 25 or something like that. And I've gotten to meet the most wonderful people through this project. It's just incredible, because people all over the world, no matter what their culture or their faith tradition or their economic status, everybody has virtues. And so it's a common thread, really, that goes throughout the world, goes throughout all people of all cultures. And I really love that. I mean, I think that's so important in this, well, anytime in our history, but particularly now when, unity is kind of hard with various things going on in the world, as we all know. But everybody has virtues. So how can we draw them forth? There's these gems, and lots of times they're undiscovered by people themselves. They don't really know, they haven't been taught. In fact, I can remember a student I had in 7th grade. I was teaching 7th grade English and social studies. And this boy named Jeff was kind of he was a big kid for his age, and he was a bully, really. He would bully kids. And I said, I thought, this guy needs self-discipline. He needs to know how to use self-discipline. And initially, when I started talking to him about it, he said, I don't have it. I've got 4 brothers. Nobody in our family has self-discipline. That is not our thing. And and by the end of the year, he was telling me, I mean, I remember seeing him across the campus. He dropped his book bag and all this stuff flew out. And he saw me way across the campus. He said, "Oh, Mrs. Smith, I'm practicing self-discipline." He pulled everything together, and he wasn't swearing or anything like that, or just blaming it on other people. So it's just magical to be able to see people, children and adults, discover these virtues that they have within.
It's a fun way to show up. I mean, that's what it's a fun, and it's a better way I'm sorry, I shouldn't say better. It is a freeing and peaceful way to show up. And I often tell people, and Sonja's heard me say this before, life becomes a treasure hunt. It's a scavenger hunt. When you start to look at it and say, I know that everybody has these virtues, I'm going to dig and I'm going to find it, and I always say, you probably have heard this, and we talk about this gem mine in the virtues, that we are all, so the premise being, we are all born with all these amazing virtues in us already. And some of them I call the pocket virtues, because you can just find them and they're on the ground and put them in your pocket. They're so easy. And some are pickaxe, because you have to pick at them a little bit, but you can see them sparkle in the wall. And then sometimes they're buried under, and you have to take the TNT to blow them up and get to them. But the point is, they're there, and you get to see them in people.
I have to, a little bit about how Hilary and I met really is how Hilary shows up in the world. And now that I know the story and the Virtues Project is, we took a business entrepreneur class together, and the lightness that she had as I came in, I didn't know who she was, but I looked over the distance. I'm like, I need to get to know this woman. I don't know who she is, but I'm going to ask her on a date and we're going to get to know each other. But you mentioned the paradigm shift, and the reason why, like Hilary shows up with this freeing, like expansiveness, welcoming, accessible, light. And that's how I can describe it now. And so then, we have, we're starting to get to know each other. And I've always kind of lived life with trust. Like I have faith, I have trust, but it was a little bit blurry. And then she introduced me to words, words that was never part of my vocabulary based on my family history, and vocabulary wasn't, I had 2 immigrant parents. So it was very limited in terms of all the fancy words. And the virtue acknowledgements truly was a paradigm. Was a paradigm shift for me. It became just so much more clear. It's, to me, I have to say, like oxygen, the most common denominator in what I was feeling about my connection with others, and trusting everyone and loving everyone, just gave me the bridge. And it was these virtue words. And I fumbled. When I was trying to do virtue acknowledgements, I was like, that sounded, I don't know if I did that right. And the more that I practiced it and got the response, it was just the clarity of all of it, which is just why it's been so powerful in my life for such a short period of time.
But before we turn it, I have more questions to Betsy. First of all, thank you. I feel like, but the thing that is so beautiful is that you instinctually are that way. We are instinctually, humanity-wise, that way. And we get so buried by the muck and the mud. And it's like, you just had the words that you were already showing up that way. You already had that beautiful, she leads so much with love, Betsy. Like, honestly, there's not a soul around her who does not know how much love emanates from her. But when there's something powerful, Betsy, I would love to hear your take on this. There's something powerful about naming, and these specific words too, but about naming these things and not having them be these abstract concepts.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree, of course, with you. I think it is, these words are powerful. They have power of their own, actually, I think. It's not just some word that's floating around out there. It's, we can call on virtues. We can call on those virtues to help us, and we can call on them to be the best we can be. And I know when I read the virtues cards, and you've probably talked about those, virtues reflection cards. I got one right here. I pulled one today of friendliness, which I hadn't read in quite a long time. Whenever I pull one of these cards, I'm reminded of who I am. It's so, sometimes I'm forgetting, I'm doing other stuff and I'm stressed out about something or whatever, or angry or upset. And I pull a virtues card and I just take a breath. I go, oh, thank you. I'm here. I know I can pull myself back to center of whatever that virtue is, because it really speaks to my soul. It's not just in heart. It's not something in my head particularly. It just helps me to pull it all together and say, yeah, okay, I know what I need to do now. I know who I am again. I can use this virtue in many ways. I can reflect on it. I can use it as an invitation to practice it more, or I can use it as an affirmation. Oh yes, and a confirmation that, oh yeah, I'm doing pretty well with this virtue. So I think these virtues cards, and I don't know if you've been talking about those at all, Hilary, and Sonja, but these are magical, and they are available to anybody on a virtues app for free at virtuesmatter.org if people want them. I love the printed cards myself, but I also use the ones on the phone. So it's just a reminder of who we are. And the virtues acknowledgements help us to define who we are, really. It helps us to be seen. When somebody gives us a powerful virtues acknowledgement as well, it's like, oh, okay, they really see me. They don't see all the external stuff that may be going around me, but they can see who I am. And it can be so powerful. I know it was powerful for those kids I worked with. It's been powerful in my own family. I, I know when my kids were teenagers, you know, we used to do a family meeting once a week and we'd do virtues pick. And my one daughter said, I'm going to pass. She didn't ever want to do it. You know, she'd roll her eyes and go, oh, here they go again. But we do a virtues pick and she could pass. She didn't have to say anything because that's part of the being respectful of each other. But when we gave her virtues acknowledgments, which was to, you know, say some virtues that we saw in her, all of a sudden she's perked up. She's feeling much better. She's sitting up straight. She's recognizing, oh yeah, this is who I am. And now I have to say she's a mother. Well, she was a teacher for several years and she used the virtues totally with her students. And now she's a mother of 3 boys. And those little boys are getting acknowledged for virtues all the time. And they are going to know who they are from early years, not like when I learned about it when I was older.
It's such a fun thing. I mean, just to give people a concept of what we're saying and what we mean when we're talking about acknowledgements. So these words that Betsy said that you can go and find the Virtues Project, and we also have them as well. These are words like assertiveness and caring and tolerance and forgiveness and humility and reliability and resilience and perseverance. These words that are so innate they do something in us when we say them because we know they're important. We know their value inside of us. And when we say something to someone, so like this month, Valentine's Day. So every month or every Valentine's Day or February, since I can remember, for the kids, I cut hearts out and I put it on their doors every day with a virtues acknowledgement. So what that is I see this virtue in you and this is how you're showing it. So now I know it's not about, like, I could say, Betsy, you're really friendly, you know, or Betsy, you know, you're really purposeful, but like, that's not enough. But if I say, Betsy, I am so grateful for how purposeful you have been through all these years and helping others find the very, very best in themselves. And because of that, you've created this ripple effect of change and transformation that is so beautiful. I really am so grateful.
And that feels so good to receive that kind of an acknowledgement. And you're so right when saying that it needs to have evidence or specific way that we see these virtues, because otherwise it's just kind of a platitude and it doesn't really go anywhere. And this is how we learn also, this is how children learn who they are, is by the evidence or the demonstration of what they are doing that shows that virtue. So I know a lot of times people will ask me, well, little children really they don't get this, do they? And I say, yep, start it when they are babies, because the language, of course, is important. And how do we know who we are unless somebody tells us? And people often, sometimes parents, and I was guilty of some of this myself, when you get so irritated and you're saying, oh, you're so lazy or something like that, they're stupid or these awful things that you can label a child with. And instead, how can you be more respectful? How could you be more patient and let your brother use that game for right now? Those kinds of things. So we're directing people, as well as, we're asking for a certain behavior and asking to call on that virtue, but we can't do it unless we teach. We can't do it unless we teach it. And so as parents, we want to teach that language to our children right away. And we do that by modeling it, not by teaching them per se.
And also modeling how to receive it. So one of my most favorite stories is my daughter. So I have a 13-year-old, and Hilary worked with Gabby when she was 12, so sixth grader. And they were doing their work, and I was serving dinner one night, and Gabby said, as I was serving, Mom, I so appreciate your kindness and service as you made dinner tonight. I know that you work full. I'm like tearing up just because when I heard those words from my daughter, not only did I feel seen from her, but I'm like, I could receive from her. I could receive as a parent. I can receive good things from my child. And for her to feel that confidence, like I can provide, I can offer what I see as a child, and all the virtue work that she has done, the way that she sees others and her conflicts at school. So when she comes home and she's like, oh, this friend, man, she really was lacking some tact today. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of personalizing, like, oh my gosh, she's so mean and she's just so mean to others. She didn't label that person, but like, I know she has tact, but it was way up in the cave. She couldn't see it. And it really helped her find better resolve more quickly, communicating with her parent to, companion and walk alongside. The most powerful tool. And now the schools are doing SEL curriculum, social emotional learning curriculum. She comes home and she's like, Mom, this is really tacky stuff happening at my school. We need to do the virtues project.
Yeah. I love that. I think, when you're talking about that, Sonja, I'm thinking, one of the wonderful things about this is the children are equal to adults. If you think about the hierarchy often in families with virtues, we all have them, and kids have them just as well as adults. And they more easily pick up the language than adults do. Right? I mean, it's harder for adults because it sounds awkward. Initially, it's like learning any new language. If you're going to learn Russian or French or whatever, you have to practice, and it sounds awkward. And it takes a while before it becomes fluent. And that's true of the virtues language as well. So we got to give ourselves a little grace when we're learning this language. It's not going to sound perfect initially, but it could be awkward. But it's about seeing these virtues and just saying it out loud. Yeah.
It really, the Virtues Project in general for our listeners, it's not just, it's seeing the best in one another. It's also learning about teachable moments. It's setting clear boundaries in a way that are accessible and really is a set of guidelines for ourselves, right? Because we can't control other people. It's celebrating one another, and it's being able to walk alongside and help others become the heroes of their own story instead of being the fixer ourselves. But there's also that's kind of where the Virtues Project started out. And then there's this interesting thing that sort of happened when the founder, Linda, hit a wall and ended up writing something called A Pace of Grace. You're going to be teaching that soon. Can you tell us a little bit about A Pace of Grace?
Sure. So A Pace of Grace is a wonderful book by Linda Kavelin-Popoff, who wrote it when she became very ill with post-polio syndrome when she was in her 50s. And she had been a high-powered woman with lots of energy. She'd traveled throughout the world, etc. But she was stopped in her tracks with this illness. And she realized that she couldn't do anything. I mean, she was in bed. And after she recovered a bit, she wrote this book called A Pace of Grace. And it's really for anybody who finds their lives overdone. Really. And I think that's most of us at some point, right? I know I've been there. In fact, I teach it because I need it myself. The book and the course will be 6 weeks, actually, over a period of 12 weeks. So it'll be 6 sessions over a period of 12 weeks because there's so much in it. And what we do is really discover different practices that are mentioned in the book. One is called Pace Yourself. How do we pace our lives? Because many of us are overdone a lot of the time. And how can we practice the presence, which is about being present to each other and being present to a particular faith tradition, if we have one, or the universe, something greater than ourselves. How do we practice that in a regular way? I'm just going to look at my notes here. Purifying your life too. What do you want to purify your life from? Do you want to be healthier physically? Do you want to exercise more? How do you want to purify your life? Do you purify it from negativity, for instance, all kinds of things? And then how do you plan a sustainable life? How do you do this on a regular basis? So yeah, we all take courses, and we all have New Year's resolutions, but do we sustain them? And how can we do that together? So one of the things that's wonderful about this course is because it's on Zoom, we have people from all sorts of places around the world. So it's really a delight to, I think people enjoy the friendship as much as anything else in this course, because they really get to know each other at a deeper level. And we start out at a deeper level, actually, when we're talking about virtues. So the virtues, of course, are all part of this. The virtues project strategies, which you just mentioned, Hilary, are part of this too. And anyway, I'd love to, let anybody know more about it if they'd like to.
Absolutely. How can our listeners find you? Yeah. How can they find you?
Well, my website is called virtuestraining.com. And, or they can email me at Betsy, Betsy, at virtuestraining.com. I have a special little gift for people. If they go to the website, the homepage, I think it says, yes, you can send me Pace of Grace tips. And there'll be, there's a webinar, the podcast on that page, and also some pages that might be helpful for people. In one called From Stressing to Blessing. And also, if anybody wants to sign up from the course who's on your podcast, I would love to have them by just sending me an email that says Hilary or decided heart effect, whatever, however you want to identify yourself, and you get a 10% discount. So it's just my pleasure to offer this course. It starts March 1st, pretty soon coming up, and it's going to be on Tuesday evenings. So,
oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much for offering those gifts. And again, we can, even though Hilary and I, we're continuing to do the work with the Virtues Project, I love how you said we need it for ourselves. I mean, we're continually discovering, or maybe like the friendliness that came up. Oh gosh, I forgot about that part of me. And it's such beautiful work because it's infinite. There is no end point, and experiences what like you're offering with the course is, I think, something that I would personally just love to experience. So thank you so much for your kindness in offering that.
Well, I'd love to have you join us. It's always a wonderful group of people. It's amazing who shows up, as I'm sure with your work as well. We're attracted, and people are attracted to these things. Not necessarily our personalities, but to the topics. And so fabulous people show up, including you two, showing up in the world in such wonderful ways. I just really want to acknowledge you for the virtues of friendliness and kindness and caring and love. I just see this joyfulness emanating from you both. So lovely.
Can you see why I love her? I
just want to receive all day.
oh, Betsy, thank you so much, because you truly, it is just a gift. Not only have you given us all these gifts, but it is such a gift and an honor and a privilege to be able to share with our listeners and our audience who have heard so often the impact that this has had in our lives, in both of our lives, I would say. And, whether near or far, in my mind, you've always been a mentor. And so I want to thank you so much for that. I appreciate it beyond what I can say in this moment. And I also want to just thank our listeners for joining us for this episode. Make sure that you're following all of us on our social media platforms and subscribing, because you don't want to miss an episode by any means. YouTube, all the other platforms. Check out our website at the DH Effect for more great opportunities to learn and grow. And
until next time, may you have the courage to live with a decided heart. Thank you, everyone.